Welcome back to the Blindsiders. I am Ben, joined here as always by Dylan and Brian, talking about episode number 9 of Survivor 48. And we've been talking about how this season might turn into a pagonging. It's going to be boring. The strength line's just going to go down to the end, unless something crazy happens. Maybe Kyle and Camilla flip the game. But we also talked last week about how a lot of pieces being set up for a shot to get taken. I thought that maybe the shot would end up getting taken at Mary, because I didn't know if they would want to make a big swing at David, but no, we got a swing at David. He goes out here in 9th place.
David forced their hand, I think it's a bummer David's gone, in the sense that I think that he is one of the only true troublemakers that are left in this game. Like David a lot as a character. I think he's something that we've been missing for a bit in Survivor, in terms of somebody that has made it this far that doesn't always have the most Survivor awareness, which I think makes them way more real to me when I'm watching them, and they're way more to make mistakes like David made tonight. He was not afraid to show his emotion. I think he played things very poorly, which nobody can really argue, but I'm sad to see David go. I still have my worries for the rest of the season, honestly. I think that after getting off to such a good start with how good this cast was, I had much higher hopes for where we'd be at post-merge, and I'm still a little down on that, but plenty of Survivor left to play, I guess.
I'm happy. I like David too. He was a fun character, but you need to go to open this game up. Can't be having one person, Dylan, I can't remember all the seasons you saw, but did you watch Ghost Island?
Yep.
Yeah, we can't have someone there banging the, tribe strong drum. What was it? I can't remember.
Navidi strong.
Navidi, yeah. Can't have the Navidi strong person like we had on that season. Like, we need people to be playing their own games, and I think David being gone is going to open this game up a lot for the back half of it.
Yeah, it's just funny. I came into this podcast expecting or planning to compare David to Coach. I thought that was the most appropriate comparison. I didn't expect a comparison to Kellen Bechtold.
Listen, Kellen seems like a lovely person in real life. I got very frustrated with her on that season of Survivor.
Yeah. Ghost Island, also another season with strong pre-merge, and then the post-merge it kind of turned into a bit of a slog and pagonging, where also half of the people we didn't really have any strategic content from it all.
Yeah. Yeah, the pre-merge Ghost Island, so good.
Underrated, I would say.
Yeah.
I still think a lot of the issues with this season are production choices, people losing their votes, advantages, stuff like that. I think if you removed a lot of that from the game, I think that I would probably maybe have a little bit of a better outlook of everything that's happened post-merge, but they didn't, and we still have post-merge, and don't get me wrong, I'm still excited, looking forward to each episode. I'm rooting for Kyle, Camilla. I mean, I'm rooting for Joe and Eva too. The rest of the game, it's nice to have people to root for. It's just I don't know. It's weird because we're having a season of where all the meat shields wanted to not be meat shields anymore. They wanted to stick to these coach core values of being honest and true, even though that's impossible in Survivor to do that all the way. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not necessarily saying that the new modern way we've gotten used to Survivor is always better than what we have currently going in this season. I think the when you bring everything together of what's gone on in this season between production choices and kind of the way this merge is played out, I don't know. I'm just not super high on everything. And I think that there's still I think the cast itself is still a great cast, but maybe you need to get some of these people separated to play with different casts now, to kind of mix different ways of the game. And I don't know. Something I told you guys, I've lost a lot with this season the past couple weeks, and I can't pinpoint one exact thing, but I think it's majority of the things I just laid out.
I'm surprised. I mean, I have a very opposite view. I think the end game is setting up to be fun. We got Joe, Eva, Shaheen, Kyle, and Camilla all as people who seem to be like pretty able to play the game. And then, Star and Mitch, we haven't seen very much from them, but presumably they're not gonna just get voted. Like if this had been a Mitch boot episode, I would have been probably right there with you. It's like, oh my god, like this is horrible. But like, I really do feel like it's broken wide open now.
In terms of Star, I feel bad for her edit, but also the one time she kind of like breaks out from the vote, she's like on the very wrong side of it. So I think poor Star is I don't know. Star could be someone that is sitting there, wins the final challenge somehow, and somehow we have Star determining who is making fire, which is kind of crazy. I told you guys I think the path forward in this game is getting Chrissy out and then getting Mitch out. I'm kind of glad Mitch is still here. I feel bad for Mitch. I'm glad he got to eat this episode. But then it turns out that group, I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. This episode was interesting, like the dynamic between David and Joe and Kyle. And I think Joe being caught in the middle and Joe not necessarily making the right decision, but also kind of going with proving that he's loyal to Kyle, and David kind of just outplaying himself, speaking way too much when he didn't have to. Like that stuff is interesting because we don't always get that dynamic a lot recently in Survivor. Like, think of a player like Q who was just crazy and people kept him there because they knew he was crazy and didn't want, and like knew he was going to win at that point. I think David was still a very real threat. And then he just kept talking and talking until you realize that like, even if I like this guy and I quote unquote trust him, like I can't go forward in the game with him. And this is how he's acting. I mean, this is the third straight week we've had David, even if it was just a scene or two, being pretty paranoid. And we're going to get into the debate about whether he was right or not. He was an interesting character. He was. I would like to see David back. One of those players that's like, does he learn from his mistakes the second time around?
Yeah, I think the way that you can kind of sum up David and his like outlook on how his personality informs his gameplay is when the Alliance was all sitting there at the beach in this episode, and he was like, "This round, I'm going to take a step back." And then like 2 seconds later, he's like, "But Mary, I know Mary still wants to get Camilla out, right? Mary, you want to get Camilla out?"
I think a lot of the issue too is, and I said this before, I think a lot of the issue is that the David and Mary thing really came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it was forced on us that they were just really, really tight. And maybe they were.
Yes,
it was
Kyle, maybe a little even more tighter than
it's probably in this episode that they were like very, very tight. It came out of nowhere last week. I think that's an editing production misstep right there, because if they were really locked in and had like a really tight bond when they were separated on an individual tribe, we really should have seen that. And maybe that content wasn't there, and they it's one of those people that they just feel connected right off the bat and they just kind of run with it. I don't know, but that whole thing felt really forced. Mary, who obviously we were like kind of high on, maybe not to win, but we were high on her to kind of start making some noise. She really kind of just died on the hill with David, and they just that aggressive, really misjudged their place in that group. And I don't know. I think David bringing on, I wasn't here to discuss this last week. I think David bringing on Mary and kind of just immediately adding on a 6 to what you thought was a really solid 5. Typically when that happens, it's never really good. It doesn't last long. And so far this season, this alliance has been the story of duos. Originally we had Say and Cedric. We've had Joe and Eva this whole time. We have Kyle and Camilla, who are operating in the shadows. And obviously the opposite end of that was Joe and Eva, who are very out in the open, a twosome together. And then like I thought David and Mary joining would be interesting on paper, but I think the way we kind of got it sucked. And then they kind of lost their minds and the way they wanted to play the game. And that was that.
Yeah, I also think it is kind of indicative of a little bit of a level of the kind of semantic hypocrisy you have to mess around with to play with this kind of like honor vibe in Survivor, where you kind of have to like pick and choose what things count and like it's almost like religious in terms of how you like organize a bunch of rules in a semantic way to make sure that you're like following the rules on paper, but like not really like, you know, it's not really like following like any kind of logical larger pattern, because it doesn't really make sense from the perspective of David to be like, we have to be loyal to this alliance, but you know, in order to make that, you know, work with him having Mary as his outside +1, it's like, oh, what's the solution to that? The solution isn't for me to be loyal to the 5 over Mary. The solution is for me to unilaterally fold Mary into the alliance, and oh, now it's a 6, so now I can be loyal to Mary at the same level as I'm loyal to the alliance because now she's in the alliance. And that's like kind of a loophole for him to get around, like, you know, not really valuing the loyalty of the group over his own personal game. And I think that's kind of like also a little bit indicative of how you have to play around with like this semantic stuff in order to justify playing Survivor in a way that makes sense, while also trying to like push out this idea of like, oh, I'm still playing with honor, I'm still playing with integrity, because I've rejiggered the rules to make it so it works that way.
I think it's just also when you try to do it in a group that large, that's like if you're saying this into a small group of maybe 2 or 3 people, that's easy. Not easy, but you know, it's easy to get you to maybe hypothetically to the final 3. When you have a group of 5, a group of 6, you are asking a lot. And it really was like this episode, a lot of people had the epiphany that, oh, you know, we're playing Survivor and people here want to play Survivor and not just sit around at the, you know, around the campfire all day and kind of wait until their fate's decided for them. Like that seemed like such a huge shock to 2/3 of the people that are left in this game. And I'm all for, I've said before, I'm all for rock solid alliances that we get from beginning to end. I think it's really fun to root for it. It's fun to see like the trials and tribulations of how that alliance plays out. But I think when you're asking 5, 6 people, like this day and age with this short of a game, to be, hey, we need to be locked in. Like that's one of my biggest issues I had with Outback was Colby was seemingly way too loyal and committed to his alliance to the point that it lost him his game. And I know there's a whole argument there that we've talked about of Colby didn't necessarily care about winning. Colby wanted to play the log game after Survivor. So maybe not the best example, but there's give and takes to how that works. And like I said, I think asking a 6, 7 people post merge to say, hey, we're just going to tell each other the truth. We have an obvious 2 or 3 people who are monsters who could win these immunities, no problem. Fucking David, I'm like shocked he lost tonight. Honestly, I'm shocked because like that was the first time I've seen him break a sweat in a challenge the entire season. It doesn't work. I don't think that committing to, like I said, a final 3, maybe even a final 4 can't work. I think asking for a solid 6 is just crazy. And also, if I'm there, I'm here in Survivor. I'm not going to just sit here and stand by. Even if, you know, great, I make 6, but then what's that at that point? I'm at the bottom of the 6. We get that every season in terms of people are having that realization. I don't know why it was such a shock to everybody else on that beach in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think the perfect example of this in the newer is like the Tika 3, like the Three Stooges, right? In terms of like being loyal can be the correct strategy and work out if it's, you know, a group of 3 or even like a group of 4. So yeah, and especially with Final Four fire making, like going down to a Final Four with a 4-person alliance is like a valid strategy as long as they don't change the fire making rules. Because that's the last time you actually really have to make a strategic decision, which is why the Final Four fire making is stupid and why Final 2 is better than Final 3 because it forces you to play, you know, with smaller numbers and kind of makes you make the distinction of whether, oh, am I 4th out of 4? If I'm 4th out of 4, then I need to do something because I'm not going to make it the final 3, never mind the final 2 if I'm 4th out of 4. But on Modern Survivor, if you're 4th out of 4, you're golden. You're at least making fire.
And there's nothing more frustrating than when a player you like or a player you're watching realizes it way too late that, oh, me going along with this for too long is detrimental to my game. It's the same thing with Chrissy. I wasn't here last week to discuss it. Chrissy, she had a shot. I think her deciding then to play the game after they had a shot to go after Eva last episode, no one even bringing it up seemingly. I think after that, it's a little frustrating in the sense of like, well, you put yourself in this hole. This is where you're going. Like you need to be gone. Goodbye. That's also very frustrating to see when people sit idle too long. You know, that's part of the reason why we watch the show. If you find the players you're rooting for, you're cheering for them to make these moves and you get frustrated when you don't. But I think when you watch players who are there in Survivor, unfortunately, Star is kind of in this category too of, you know, you talk about wanting to do something. Where were you the past, 3-4 trials when you had the potential to do something? I think that's why I go back to just the voting of Say was just so stupid and so poorly done by them, even though in the end it would have taken a lot for her not to go home. It just was not smart. And obviously people are terrified to leave this game early now. And people are always scared to leave Survivor early, but people are scared at even the potential thought of, if you're in the minority, threatening to go to rocks or anything even remotely that close. It seems like more so now than ever before, people are really, really scared of that. And I understand it, because at that point, multiple people's fate are up in the air instead of one or two. But I think people need to start taking more risks in these games, especially people that are very, very obviously on the bottom. I think too often now in this new era, we see people that are just way too idle sitting by and are just okay with either going home or just getting one more episode.
Yeah, I think for Star and Mitch, it's tough because I don't think they really have any social capital with anybody. Like, they're not going to convince anybody to do anything at this point in the game. And like, it feels like for Star especially, she like was drawing dead from the second she got onto the beach, where like nobody in her original tribe necessarily respected her or like wanted to include her in an alliance, and she just kind of lucked out getting to the merge by being on tribes that won everything. And then Mitch was kind of honestly in a similar spot where it's like, in another season, they're both probably pre-merge early boots, but because they lucked out in terms of how swaps went and all that, like, I mean, even in the Bianca boat, Mitch wasn't even involved in that. So it's like Mitch hasn't been involved in anything, and I think they're just kind of like playing around them at this point, rather than, I can't blame them for not playing harder, because it's kind of similar to Jake or Owen, where it's like, okay, you can have all kinds of plans, it doesn't mean anyone's gonna listen to them.
I mean, Star did give her idol away to the person who was in the best position.
That was bad.
That
was real bad.
So
yeah. And did it get her any loyalty back? No, it didn't.
She wasn't, I talk about Star being on the wrong side of the vote tonight. She probably thought she was voting with the majority, and just nobody told her that that's not what was happening.
Yep, exactly. They don't even include her at all. So it's hard for that, but I do think like Kyle, he almost held a little bit too long. It's like I don't know, what's a good game where like you're supposed to hold for a certain time but you can't go over?
The stock market.
Yeah. He almost diamond hands his
he was hodling,
alliance. But it almost got away from him, but he was able to maneuver it to actually like keep Camilla and still not give up the like impression that they're super tight, or as tight as they present themselves to us when they're doing confessionals, which was impressive. Good threading the needle, but I do think he was like very much at the whim of Joe and Eva, like deciding whether or not it was going to be a good move or not. Like if David doesn't tell Joe that he doesn't have honor and integrity, does this go the other way? I think it's possible.
Yeah, I think it's possible. And double down on it and then triple down on it with Eva later. So
I think before we get into the meat and bones of this episode that we want to discuss too, because I agree, I think Kyle has actually found himself probably on top at the moment, flipping
I think
Joe and
Kyle's
Evo.
the probable winner right now, in my opinion.
Kind of back on to start. I do think one thing I've noticed now with the Survivor community, which once again, it's a loud minority online that I feel like we get a lot of this from. This like whole, because we talk about Star, Star was kind of lost as soon as she got on the beach. I think we've kind of, and we mentioned her original tribe, which included Eva, of like not really wanting to work with her. I've noticed particularly this season with Survivor fans, there is so many bullies online with this community. And I know it's probably always been this way since social media has taken off. It still is though kind of like flabbergasting to me to see like everyone hates Eva now and saying Eva hates women because she didn't want to originally work with Star, which is like insane to me. But now everyone's picking on David, like making fun of him because he lives with his dad in like a trailer and his dad's driving, which like on the face of it, I respect funny. And that is like funny, but like people are like legitimately, and this is going to lead us into the conversation we're going to go into, Ben. So like people legitimately hate David online. Like a lot of people hate David. And we're kind of getting to the thing too of the other side of where people are like people making fun of him because his girlfriend situation on that. People are dicks. And I know this is the internet. It's always been like that, Survivor, but I've particularly been paying attention to it this season. The Survivor community online sucks. At least the people that are vocal on social media and on like Reddit and stuff like that. Brutal. It like makes me not want to visit those spaces. And I know firsthand, obviously talking to you guys, the normal Survivor fan are great to talk to, but man, online, vocal online fans, some of the worst in like any like show or anything I've watched recently. It's like very eye opening to me.
Don't watch Big Brother.
Yeah,
put it that way. Somehow so much worse.
Big Brother was worse, and Survivor also used to be worse.
Yeah.
I think,
the number one fan site was called Survivor Sucks, so it's just like 100% shitting on everyone involved.
Yeah,
I don't know. Does Survivor Sucks still a website?
It's not very active. If it is, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's not what it once was.
Yeah,
we could bring it back and strictly talk about like production mistakes. All right, yeah, I'm kind of ready to get into like the whole David, Kyle, Joe.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it as a website anymore.
Damn,
it's gone.
Rip.
It wasn't. It was like the bar on in Star Wars. It's like the wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Pretty much, yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree, Dylan. People are very mean. I think for David, it doesn't help that he's like the epitome of like a Chad meme. Yeah. He's like really handsome and really jacked, and that's just not the general Survivor fan. And I think it's easy to be like knock him down a peg wherever they can, you know.
He's also got an abrasive personality, and I mean,
sure, yeah.
That's like also it's the internet. Like, so I'm not gonna be shocked that the people on the internet are not the nicest of people, but it's more so. Like, I think I've just been paying attention to more Survivor, and I've tried, and like, because I told you I banned the Reddit for a while, even though I go on it every single time. I think more so going back there, and I started to see it with Traders too. I thought Traders was really bad. I thought people on the Traders Reddit were just very. Danielle was their hero on the Reddit, and anybody who said anything bad about Danielle was like racist and idiots. So that's a whole different kind of topic. But yeah, people online very mean. Not us though. And
I don't know about that. Yeah, I'm plenty mean.
Yeah.
The only meanie here is going to be Ben as we usher into this whole ordeal of was David right or was David wrong? Let's discuss.
Yeah, so seemingly the contention with most or a lot of people online is like David was right that Camilla was the right person to boot, but Ben, you don't agree because he was right for the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah. I mean, my premise is basically like, if I go up to a dog and I say, this dog has sharp teeth that wants to kill me, and the dog's just laying there. And I'm like, I swear this dog wants to kill me. Watch. And then I kick the dog a bunch of times, and then the dog attacks me. And then the dog's like biting me with its sharp teeth. I'm like, see, it has sharp teeth. I told you it's trying to kill me. It's like, was I right? Like, am I right? Like, the dog does have sharp teeth. I was correct about that. And it did end up trying to kill me, right? Like, whether or not I was right at that point, I think is a semantic argument.
And you're kind of equating, like the egging on of the dog to David's targeting of Shaheen, even though he's in the alliance, with like that's a completely unnecessary thing. But because he targeted Shaheen, that allowed Kyle to bring Shaheen in and kind of orchestrate David's downfall that he foresaw. But it's kind of like prophecies in like fiction.
Prophecy.
Yeah, where it's like, this wouldn't have happened, but then he tried to prevent it from happening and he caused it to happen.
Yeah, I think primarily my issue is, let's go back to the split tribal vote, right? That episode. During that episode, we have a conversation between Kyle and Camilla where they talk about setting up to target Shaheen. Possibly at that vote, he was like, kind of pitched as the decoy vote during that elimination where Cedric goes. But they also were trying to set up to potentially work with David in the future vote to take out Shaheen and try to dismantle the alliance from the inside. That was their original plan. Camilla tries to set up pieces during that episode to make that happen by going up to David and lying to him that Shaheen has an idol. Or she says she thinks Shaheen has an idol, or they suspect Shaheen has an idol. This will come back in this episode. Then after that, the very next round, David suddenly believes that Shaheen has Camilla in his back pocket. Because I think Shaheen does legitimately believe that he has Camilla in his back pocket, but he doesn't. And David should have the information that he doesn't, because Camilla, literally the prior day, had just came up to him, spilling information to him about Shaheen to try to get him targeted. So this is information that he should already have that he's ignoring. And then he tries to target Camilla on the basis of he is in Shaheen's back pocket. Shaheen is the sneakiest player in the alliance. If somebody's going to turn the alliance, it would be him. He would use Camilla to do so we have to target Camilla. All of this is wrong. Literally every part of this is incorrect. Not a single thing that he said so far or he's put forward to his alliance so far has any merit at all. So at that point, not only does Kyle not want to target Camilla, but literally nobody else in the alliance except for him and Mary want to target Camilla. Shaheen, Kyle, Joe, and Eva are all for targeting Chrissy over Camilla because of Kyle's, the way that he poorly reacted. Kyle gets the most focus from David, even though everybody else was like not super on board, because Kyle was the most vocal and everyone else was kind of like playing it a little bit closer to the chest to not really like upset David when he was really pushing this. Kyle was the one that was like getting most focus. So now David's logic is, okay, that means that Kyle is working with Shaheen and both of them are using Camilla to try to target me. That's like the new extrapolation of his theory. Also incorrect, right? Kyle and Camilla are working together, but they're working together separately from Shaheen. And in fact, we're trying to target Shaheen up until this very moment. So where in this is David right?
He's right. So the part of this argument that I disagree with you, Ben, is that just because he started at point A and ended up getting to point B doesn't mean that like point A was where he started, where you said was he wanted to get Camilla out. He didn't trust Camilla. That evolved into Camilla and Shaheen working together, which then for him evolved into Camilla as well, working with both Kyle and Shaheen. But there was a particular scene in this episode alone where he laid out why he's like so sure that Kyle and Camilla are working together. And the way Kyle acted with the original vote, Kyle did it poorly. I think Kyle himself got very, very lucky at the end of this. He got obviously lucky with how David reacted to the whole thing at the end. But he did deduce in that Kyle and Camilla were working together, and that's kind of what he was really driving home to Joe. Also with Shaheen. So obviously, if you're talking about all three of them, they're wrong. I still think David was right because he clocked Kyle for all the right reasons. And I think even, especially because how many times do we see people that are paranoid when nothing else is going on? Nothing else is happening at all, and we still get the same result where they're voted out. I do think David deserves some credit because he was aware enough to, even though his initial reasoning to go after Camilla was wrong in the sense that his reasoning was not like accurate to what was going on overall. I still think he deserves that credit. He was right when he clocked Kyle and Camilla. He was right to question Kyle for 2 episodes to why he didn't want to vote Camilla out. It makes sense. I thought the only valid argument Kyle made back to him was that Camilla's been voting with us the whole time. You know, there was no signs at that point to want to get Camilla out. It's only after that it evolved into how Kyle acted based on the reactions of Kyle and Camilla after that he deduced for sure that Kyle and Camilla were working together. I agree. The Shaheen thing, obviously, I do think that situation has evolved a little bit since then, obviously, yes because of David's actions. But I think David saw blood all over that dog's mouth and saw the dead body laying down the road and deduced that as soon as I turn my back on this dog, it is going to bite me. So I'm going to kick it first.
Well, if we're going with that, continue with that analogy, in this case, the dog would have killed the person that was trying to actually murder David. And because in this case, he's targeting Camilla, even if it was on the basis of Kyle is working with Camilla against the Alliance, which is David speak for against him, and that's what he actually cares about. That is wrong, because Kyle and Camilla, before that point, were intending to work with David to target the Alliance against Shaheen. Like, their intent was to use David to take Shaheen out, which would have been beneficial for David. So even targeting Camilla on the basis of her being secretly allied with Kyle is bad for him. With this, like, with the knowledge that he had already, because their intent, Kyle's intent, was to use David to target Shaheen, and so that the three of Kyle, Camilla, and David would then have control within the Alliance. So he undermined the person in the Alliance that was actually the most willing to target the people in the Alliance that were actually going to come after him.
I do think David was always going to be probably one of Camilla's top targets to go out, start going after first for obvious reasons. But like you said, it's semantics. I think you're a David hater. I'm a David truther, and I do think David deserves some credit.
You sound like the Rachel stands last year for coming after me for saying that Rachel got lucky.
In that case, you were 100% right though. So it's like that was unfortunate. No, I think
I will say I did forget that Camilla and Kyle wanted to initially bring David in, which that's a good point.
It's part of I guess the only intrigue of what's left for me was that I think Camilla has been playing a very, very underrated game to this point, but I also think that's why David deserves the credit in the sense that even if it was mistakenly, I think he got what I think is probably the most dangerous player left in this game. To your point, Ben, he did it out of blind luck at the start, but I do think he deserves credit for them blind lucking his way into actually spelling out why it was clear Kyle and Camilla were working together.
Well, blind luck implies it was good. I said it was like an accident, but like luck implies it was good. Nothing David did the last 2 rounds has been good. I don't think a single thing he's done has improved his win equity.
I said I think openly bringing Marion was a big mistake for obvious reasons. I think Mary also heavily overestimated her place with that alliance. Her place was with David. Her place was not with Joe, Eva, Kyle, and Shaheen. So I think that's another obvious big mistake for David. There's no question David should have been the one that go home tonight, which is why I disagree with everybody saying, "Oh, Joe and Eva are going to look back on this episode and be like, oh my God, what do we do?" David played a game tonight or last night where he was the only option to vote him out, and if David won immunity, Mary was going home. It was that kind of. I thought it was like very clear from that point. That's what was happening. And I think that's the interesting thing that's left for me now is that dynamic of. I think you saw tonight, Joe very, very seriously. Joe takes his word very, very seriously. I think Joe takes his relationship with Eva very, very seriously left of the game. But I also think the relationship between Kyle and Joe has evolved a lot. I do think that is going to potentially get very, very messy. I think this is going to be a very bitter jury when we get to Final Tribal, which I think this jury has a more right to be bitter based on their own logic of how they all discussed they wanted to play this game. I think that that's their own fault. I think this jury has the right to be bitter based on what plays out. This is not a situation with Maria and Charlie where I think Maria was literally just sour grapes that Charlie made it and she didn't. I think that people like Chrissy, people like David are going to be very, very sore towards the people that voted them out. Cedric is just completely out to lunch. My favorite quote of the night was when David got voted out that Cedric said he didn't see that coming. That's the most obvious thing Cedric has ever said. We know you didn't see that coming, Cedric. I think if that is what happens, if we get to a final five of Kyle, Camilla, Shaheen, Joe, and Eva, that is the most entertaining outcome for Final Five I will have. If that's our final episode, I'll be very, very happy. I think if next week we have a Joe or Eva blindside, or which I think is worst case scenario, a Shaheen, Kyle, or Kyle, I don't think Camilla will go home. I think Shaheen or Kyle blindside next week. I think this season quickly turns into, Camilla is going to win the game because she's lured in Mitch and Star, who everybody else kind of cast aside, which is a great winner. Like this will be more. This is not an Erica from 41 win. This is Camilla. The pieces have been set since the first time we saw Camilla start trying to play. Was it Charity, the first one that she started like going behind her back to everybody else saying that like she's lying about whatever she's doing. I think that'll be very satisfying, but I do get a little bit worried where if we have Shaheem, Kyle, Joe, or Eva go home next episode, I just don't see that being a very satisfying blindside or outcome to the season. I think that we kind of need Star, Mitch gone. Sorry for them. I hope they had fun playing Survivor, especially Mitch. I think Star has kind of just been there on the beach. She learned how she was swam though, which is good for her. That she immediately wanted to vote Mitch out after he taught her how to swim. So that's a whole other interesting thing about Star. I think that's the final five that we need to kind of like put this season in the upper echelon of New Era, because I think that is where things will get really, really juicy, really, really emotional. Like imagine a blindside with Shaheen, Camilla, and Kyle voting out Eva, leaving Joe out. Like that would be something that would rock the foundation of that beach. So that's my hope. Long story short, yeah, I am nervous the rest of the season being boring now that David's gone, honestly. But I do think that there is that potential there of drama and good schemes. I think there's still a chance that a lot of good gameplay happens at the end of this season now, because I think Joe is a very good player, even though once again, I don't think he got quote unquote played in this episode. I think that he was forced to go Kyle, even though I think him and Kyle's relationship has evolved. I think Eva's really good. I think Eva has kind of held her hand. Her hand was held a little bit at first, but I think that she's kind of come into her own. And then we've obviously Kyle and Camilla, I don't really have to preach anymore. Shaheen's a big one. I can see Shaheen winning this season, truly. He's towards the bottom of the list now. People left that I can see winning, but I can see Shaheen winning. I think that'd be interesting. I think Shaheen's a really good character. too. I think Shaheen is he's nuanced in the sense that I think he's both honest and a good guy, and also somebody that I think another person I'd like to see back in another season. So that's my rant on the rest of the season. Yeah, no, David was right though. Back to that.
All right. Well, I think either Star or Mitch will be in the final 3. Almost certainly. They'll get no votes, but I think one of them will be there. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think the season still has some juice. I don't think it's going to be too boring, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Sorry for taking up all that time and that rant right there.
No, it's all good.
That's good. I do disagree though. I don't think that spending 2 episodes getting rid of Star and Mitch would be the best.
Oh wow, the Jaguars traded for the 2nd pick.
Oh, some drama happening in the draft. But
for that fall, Wicked Good Sports.
Yeah, I do think it'll be exciting because I don't think that Star or Mitch are going to get voted off anytime soon. I think it would be boring because I don't think either of them have any chance to win the game, at least not being presented as such. So like it's more entertaining for me that people who are potential threats to win are getting clipped,
Yep.
But
and like
we'll
even worst case scenario, like we'll still probably have like 3 viable winners in the final 5, like even if people start getting taken out. Because I agree, I think like any of those 5 that were mentioned, the Joe, Eva, Kyle, Camilla, or Shaheen, are still like perfectly viable winners for me. Mary, Star, and Mitch, no, but the other 5, yes. Like even like Dylan said, I think the Erica comparison is really apt, because I was thinking of that today. I was like, man, they've really backed off of Camilla as like a character or player in the edit recently. But from a storytelling perspective, she's still gotten way more content through this point in the season compared to like Erica in 41. So I definitely have not completely wrote her off as a winner.
Yeah, they did a bad job with Erica in 41.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I guess like that's kind of like Erica kind of like now has set the bar where like can Camilla still win even though she's barely been in the last episodes? Like, yeah, she still can win. She's got a lot of content. She's been kind of strategically out to dry for a bit. It's very, very easy for her to start turning it around the next few episodes. So,
yeah. Well, that's all I really have for this episode. I don't know about you guys.
Well, they took Travis Hunter.
So I think that would mean no.
I was so lucky. I heard everything you said, Ben, about right after you were done talking. They announced the pick. What was the question? Sorry.
Do you have anything else you wanted to talk about
for
this episode?
No, I think I pretty much have I've left it all on the floor there. I am I've been vocal the past couple of weeks. My concern for the rest of the season. I just pretty much laid out exactly what I need for a great final 5. Like you said, Ben, any of that 5 would be a good winner. I'm very hopeful for that, and because I just think for Star and Mitch, they're dead weight at this point in the season. They're some of the deadest weight that we've seen reach this far in the game, except for old muddy face from 2 seasons ago. Or last season, actually.
Last season, yeah.
Yeah, that's my hope. But Mitch, I saw at least Mitch, like I said, Mitch is living his best post-Survivor life, hanging out with Survivor people at like the Final 4 and stuff. So good for him.
Yeah,
I hope Star's up
to
fun. I hope Star's up.
He's mixing it up on Twitter with everybody all the time too.
I can see Star being good on like a fun reality show. Like maybe not one where you have to live at a beach. I think she'd be a lot of fun in that. Maybe Big Brother. I don't know. I've never watched Big Brother, so I don't know. That's it for me. At
least get to see her on the feeds.
Yeah.
We know if she's good. Would they make her a focus of the show? Who knows? Because there was a character a couple seasons ago named Izzy who was like amazing entertainment on the feeds, and they just didn't like show her on the show at all, which is super bizarre.
Yeah, JoJo Siwa, Mickey Rourke. That's not a great situation for.
That's a different Big Brother. That's not one we cover. That's different.
Yeah, that's Celebrity Big Brother UK,
Mhm.
which is over soon.
Yeah. Speaking of, I'm getting excited for the US Big Brother. I love Big Brother. I wish there was more Big Brother in the US all the time.
I am very excited as the steam for season 50 is picking up for
Yes.
Survivor. I wonder we may have to do a emergency pod for that. We've discussed it already of when we start getting some of like official.
Oh yeah,
leaks.
when the cast is leaked, we will be
Yeah, when
immediately
we
doing
get like a
podcast.
final leak cast and not just like pieces of like, oh, this is like 80%. We have like, we have half of the people mostly correct. Like
It seems Emily, Q, and Genevieve are the consensus new era picks that are apparently locks for. It's changed a bit for a new era, but Jen, Emily, and Q, something I'd be very, very happy with, especially if the other people that are rumored for season 50 are in the mix of older players. That would be very good for us. Wish my boy Charlie we get a chance. Charlie seemingly has not really been a part of any of these discussions, but I will take Genevieve any day of the week, along with Q's Entertainment and Emily. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm also very excited to get the actual list out here. We need that Instagram account to come back to let us know.
I mean, I think the second they're sequestered, we'll get a list. Like literally, like the minute their phones get taken away, I think we get a list because like I think that's really the reason why this has been like kind of ticky tack, and this happens a lot with like return player seasons. Is we get like very vague speculative rumors that are like mostly right, but like not fully right up until like kind of the season starts filming, and then like day one of filming, we usually get like a pretty much 100% accurate list. So
Survivor 49 started filming, so
yes.
That's fun. There are people right now playing Survivor.
Yep.
Probably one or two of them will be on season 50. We don't even know them yet.
I don't know about that.
They like doing that. They like doing at least.
You guys know better than I do. Two? I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, like look at Millennials Jackson, the game changers. You had both Zeke and Michaela, and then Worlds Apart into Cambodia. You had both Joe and Shireen. It's actually usually two. Well, actually, that's like average. I think it's about 50-50, right? So I guess Philippines and Caramon was only a half cast, and but then China and Micronesia was two. It was James and Amanda. See, I think it's on average 1.5. So
I just think something about 50. I just based on the cast we've seen potentially for 50. I don't know. Maybe like I said, you guys know better than I do. So
I think it's likely we get one, and it's possible we get two.
Yeah, at least one. I know if I was on Survivor 49, I'd be like, I'm playing to play again.
Yeah, it's like it's like one of the only situations where like playing for a return appearance is actually like applicable and not just
a valid strategy. Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. But Dylan, anything you want to promote before we get on out of here?
No, the fucking Giants just took Carter, so my hopes and dreams are just.
Oh no!
Follow me, DJ Clubberlang on Twitch, TikTok, OnlyFans, Reddit, all that. So follow me there.
All right, Ben, same thing.
Yeah, you can follow. Brian and I and Maggie are doing a Black Mirror podcast. I might
having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I still have not watched episodes 5 and 6 yet, but I'll probably tomorrow I'll watch those.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been Friday, Saturday usually.
Yeah, either tomorrow or like Saturday during the day. That's when I'm probably going to do my watches of those. But yeah, I've enjoyed the season of Black Mirror so far. Very excited also for Devil's Plan season 2 comes back. I think like a week, right?
Oh my god, I can't wait, dude.
When is it coming out? I keep getting the days mixed up because there's like multiple shows all coming out soon.
Right.
Devil's Plan Season 2 release date. I don't know why it's so hard to find this. Why is it not telling me? Fucking Google is so horrible. It's like the worst thing. May 6th. There we go. Okay, so it's 2 weeks or so. So
yeah.
And then
What
also
about the Genius UK? When's that coming out?
I think the Genius UK is the week after. I think it's like May 14th or something like that.
Damn. All right. Ooh, so much that we want to
Yep.
cover coming out, but we'll be here. Check that out.
April 30th, actually. So actually fewer days.
For the Genius comes out April 30th.
Yeah, so actually a week from yesterday.
So sooner. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
so six days for the Genius UK and a little less than 2 weeks for Devil's Plan Season 2.
I'm excited. I'm excited to understand. We might have to do a podcast primer of like what is the Genius? How does it
Well,
work?
I mean, you watched Devil's Plan Season 1. The Genius is like
Hmm.
85% the same game.
Okay. Why they changed? I guess just because Netflix wanted the show, but they didn't want to buy the rights.
Yeah, I guess the Genius format in South Korea, I guess, just kind of like got retired, and he made the Devil's Plan instead, which, in my opinion, is a worse format, but it's still very good. Like,
Yeah,
I would call
really
Devil's
good
Plan the fifth best season of the Genius out of 5, but still a very good season of television.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how people play in this next season, and if they like follow Orbit's plan that he set up in the first season. I hope not personally. I hope people are a little bit more self-interested this season, but
yeah, one of the worst parts of the Devil's Plan season 1 was the infrequency of eliminations.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can follow me on Twitter at the fake BMAR. That's BMARR. And then we have our main channel, Wiki and Everything. I just did a video kind of talking about The Last of Us Season 2 and how it works as an adaptation, what I think is working so far versus what's not. I also have Worth Fighting For, which is a Last of Us podcast, which, you know, goes more in depth with that. Tamora and I do that. As Ben said, we got the Black Mirror podcast, A Look in the Mirror, happening right now, which has been a lot of fun and fun to bring Maggie into the fold of one of our podcasters. And then, we get sports. And that channel is Better Radio for all the podcasts there. So, yeah, other than that, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.